Oh, and that's this is. I want to know. That project work well. Let's work on some project stuff. Yeah. But I
Yes.
Handsome guy. Well, you did like that. Well, I wait till you get my back. Something. Oh, yeah. Right off your train. How was your break?
That's good.
Good.
Too short. How are you?
I'm like, I kind of forgot that like, I have to be here today.
I know.
I was like, the thing is, I was ready for the semester, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah. As soon as I hit the parking lot, it reminded me like, oh yeah, everyone's here today.
Like less traffic.
Yeah.
It's trying to come up. I realized halfway through my break that was my last break in life.
Well, then it'll be based on whatever company you work for.
2 weeks PTO. Let's go.
But then the good thing about PTO is you can take it when other people aren't on break. So if you travel, then it's better.
Right.
Because whenever I travel, it's always on breaks, and so it's always super crowded.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Well, this is good.
Mark, don't sit on that.
Okay.
Don't sit on that.
Hello. How are you? Here, this first homework assignment is.
What a teacher. That's crazy. Who would do that? Guys, I haven't registered for the quicker, like do Sunday. Yeah, for like my class I got.
You're not using all things.
It's not remote. I finished probably this. No, I have it on my computer.
Oh, that's.
I have to deactivate it.
Okay, you're good.
I'm gonna deactivate. I'll deactivate it when I get out. Okay. You can have it.
Thanks, sir. I know.
Like, even right there, I was like starting to get a little blind. I don't have that.
For all of college.
I've never had classes. Like I've never needed to be fine. Like I was in I do. So first thing is a problem.
Are we doing a syllabus today? Or are we doing like a solo lecture?
No, just well, just a little bit of course introduction and the syllabus. The first real lecture will be on Thursday.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
My iPad's in charge.
Yeah. Just make a charter for Thursday.
Okay.
You're so breaking my head.
I know, me too.
I haven't touched this thing in, what is it? I don't know, 5 weeks.
Last week, I was like, oh my God, I have to go back to work next week.
Do we have a project in this class?
No, this is a straight up just exams in this class. All right, it's 1 o'clock. Let's go and get started. All right, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to the spring semester. Welcome to EGME 407 heat transfer. Had to check, make sure that was the class. My name's Justin, Professor Justin Trent. I will be your instructor for this class this semester. This room is really nice. I haven't taught in this room in, I think, like 2 years, but my office is right over there, so it's nice to just walk over here. All right, so the plan for today, today's just gonna be a really chill day, so I just want to just introduce the course to you guys. So there's no notes that you need to take today, so I just have some slides. Usually, I'm not usually gonna be doing slides. Usually I do, I write on my iPad and kind of project that, but today's special. I'm still getting off break right now, so we have slides. We'll introduce the course, we'll talk about the syllabus, we'll take a tour of the course website, and then we'll probably call it a little bit early today, okay? All right, so let's go and get started. Oh, before I get started, does anyone have any pressing questions about the class or anything? Yeah.
You probably might cover this later in your slides, but for exams, do we get full PGs double-sided?
Yep. So if you've taken me before, and I do see a lot of familiar faces, so my policy for exams is that you can have a 8.5 by 11 sheet of notes, front and back side. You can write whatever you want, but yeah, we'll go over more when we get closer. Okay, so first a little bit about myself. So like I said, my name is Professor Justin Tran. My office is E220, which is literally just right down the hall right there, which is very nice. My email address is justran@fullerton.edu. Kind of a silly, you can see it's a combination of my name, but it kind of ends up sounding kind of silly. Sounds like a running club here at Fullerton. I would prefer that you email me if you have anything about the class. I know Canvas has a messaging feature, and I don't mind it if you message me on that, but I do prefer that everything's in my email just so it's all in kind of one place. Right? A little bit about my background. So I'm very much local to here. So I grew up in Cyprus. If you don't know where that is, that's just 9 miles down the 91 west from here. So I'm very familiar with this area. I grew up here. A bunch of my friends came to Cal State Fullerton, so it's kind of still feels a little bit surreal to be working here after a lot of my friends came here. A bit about my educational background. So I got my bachelor's from UCLA, master's from UCSD, PhD from Stanford. So I've been all up and down California. Can't really leave California. I'm a California boy, born and raised, and all of my degrees have been in mechanical engineering. My research interests, unfortunately, not too relevant to what we're going to be doing in this class, but I am really into basically biomedical applications of engineering. In particular, heart and blood disease, and how we can use engineering to help, combat that and come up with new cures and things like that. And of course, just being an instructor in STEM, this is I've been working here for 6 years now. I'm interested in STEM education. Okay. So next thing I want to go over are the learning objectives. And so, if you've had me before, this should be very familiar. But the whole idea with the learning objectives is that, I organize my class around these objectives. And so at the beginning of class every day, first thing you're going to see when you walk in, or first thing you see when you log into the Zoom lecture, is you're going to see the learning objectives for that day. Now you can think of these learning objectives as kind of like an outline in terms of what I expect to cover that day. But I actually write these very intentionally. And so if you look at these learning objectives, you'll see that all of them start with a verb of some kind. And so the idea with that is to kind of illustrate to you kind of what kind of skill or what kind of action or what kind of thing that you can do after attending the lecture for that day. So for example, after today's lecture, you should be able to list some applications of heat transfer. So, as soon as the lecture's over, I come, I see you after class, say, hey, tell me some application of heat transfer. That's something that you should be able to do. Okay. So I do it this way for a few different reasons. First of all, it's in the world that we live in today, it's good to know kind of, what you're getting out of your education. And so I write these in a particular way to say that, these are the skills that I'm learning and these are the things that I'm going to do. Okay. But also, this also gives you a good way to kind of assess your own learning, right? Because I think a lot of times, you'll go to a lecture or you watch a video, or you do something and you think like, oh, like what am I supposed to get out of this? Or, what did I actually get everything that I need to? So, the way to kind of use these learning objectives is that after class every day, go back and look at your learning objectives and say, did I learn enough from the lecture today to be able to list out the applications of heat transfer? And if the answer is yes, then that's good. That means you got something really important from the lecture. If not, then you should go back and, maybe review the lecture notes or maybe rewatch the lecture recording just so that you can get that thing. Okay. Because with the way, these courses are designed, I'm giving you guys homework assignments, there's going to be exams, but, honestly, the best way to learn is to kind of constantly give yourself feedback in terms of, did I get everything? And the learning objectives are there to kind of help you with that. Okay, so definitely, write down the learning objectives every day and use them to kind of help enhance your learning. Okay, and so with that, let's get into what this class is all about. So for every class that I teach, I always like to spend the first day just giving a broad introduction to the class. Okay, so this class is about heat transfer. So if you look up the definition for heat transfer in the textbook, or maybe you can find this online, the definition for heat transfer is heat transfer basically is just the transfer of thermal energy due to some kind of spatial temperature difference. Okay. So that's kind of a fancy, well, maybe not super fancy, but that's kind of a way to, I think there's a simpler way that we can call heat transfer. So, we're going to spend an entire semester doing this, but, you're going to, if you remember this one phrase throughout this entire semester, I would say I did a pretty good job with this class. So another definition for heat transfer is that heat goes from hot stuff to cold stuff. And there's really kind of no exception to this to this rule. And so if you remember that energy will flow from something that's hot to something that's cold, that's heat transfer in a nutshell. Now, there's a lot of specifics in terms of the details of how much energy is transferred, the exact rate, effects of geometry and things like that. And that's what we're going to learn in this class. But essentially, energy goes from hot stuff to cold stuff. And that's essentially heat transfer in a nutshell. Okay, so let's talk about some applications or some examples, right? And so, I always like to learn with examples. I like to see things illustrated to me. So heat transfer is all around us. And in fact, it's a very important part of a lot of the engineering work that you're going to do, okay? So first example, I was just texting my friends about what we're going to do for Super Bowl. Speaking of that, a very common application for this is to cool your drinks. And so, this is probably a very familiar scene. You go to a party, there's a cooler probably there somewhere filled with ice, and there's drinks. And the purpose of the ice is to cool down the drink so that it's a more pleasant drinking experience. And of course, I have soda in here because, otherwise, I'd get in trouble. So, in this case, the drinks are the hot object, the ice is the cool object. Heat is going from the drinks to the ice, and then that makes your drinks cold. Let's look at the opposite situation. So let's look at a heating situation. So, this is hopefully is a situation that you've seen before too. So we're boiling a pot of water. And so in this case, thermal energy is going from the flame to the water, and that's heating up the water enough so that it boils. And so we'll talk a little bit about phase change and kind of what that means in the class as well. Okay. Another very common application, microwaves. And so this is a very common way to reheat your food. Again, the microwave outputs energy in the form of heat, and that goes into your food, and that heats your food to make it more pleasant to eat. Okay. So, I picked these examples because, these are things you're probably likely to see in your very everyday life. Okay. And heat transfer is kind of all around this. Okay, so what are some other examples of heat transfer? So now that you've kind of seen a few, everyday examples, what are some other things that you see in your everyday life that can classify as heat transfer? Just shout it out. Radiator, yeah, perfect example. Your car is full of heat transfer stuff everywhere. So if you're going to work in automotive, heat transfer is something you need to understand very well. What else? Was it? Nuclear power plant. Yeah. So energy generation. Anytime you generate energy, that's always going to release. Usually, it's going to release energy in the form of heat. And so, if you're into renewable energy, nuclear energy, even traditional combustion, heat transfer is going to be really important for them.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning, perfect. So, we've talked about cooling objects, but, cooling people is also a really important situation. So heating, cooling, HVAC, heat transfer is really important for that.
Pretty much constantly happening every year.
Yep. Temperature management is, if you're good at heat transfer, you're almost always going to have a job because managing thermal energy, temperature is important basically in it. All right, anything else? Cool. Yeah, so heat transfer is all around us. And so, it's a great thing to learn. And if anything, more than any other class, I would say that I've taught here, heat transfer is something that I apply in my daily life. Partly just because I like to cook a lot. And so, I think of heat transfer. So that's something. So, okay. So how does heat transfer happen? So, we know that heat goes from hot stuff to cold stuff, but there's actually different, different mechanisms or different ways for heat to transfer. Okay. So there's three main types of heat transfer. So we have conduction, convection, and radiation. Okay. And in fact, this is actually kind of how the class is kind of broken down. And so for the first third of the class, or maybe for the first 40% of the class, we're going to cover conduction. Second 40% of the class, we're going to cover convection. And the last 20%, basically, right before finals, we're going to talk about radiation for about 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. Okay. So let's go over what these mean, and don't feel like you need to write anything down because we're going to go over this again over the next few weeks. But I want to at least give you an idea of what these different modes what they mean. Okay, so conduction. When someone says conduction, this is the transfer of heat through a stationary medium. Okay, stationary means that it's not moving, so it's completely still. So the most common situation for conduction is heat transfer through a solid. So a solid is a solid object, can't really move. But you can also have conduction through a fluid or a gas as well. Okay. And the way that conduction happens is that neighboring molecules within the material actually vibrate and kind of transfer energy to each other. Okay. So what are some examples of conduction? So first on the left-hand side there, we have a hot cup of water. With a metal spoon, okay? And if you've ever done this before and you've kept the metal spoon inside the hot water, you'll know very quickly that the spoon will get very hot, and if you're not careful, it can actually burn your fingers, okay? So this is a great example of conduction because the spoon is a solid object, heat is transferring from the tea up into the spoon, and that's what causes it to heat up, okay? Next one we have here is a picture of someone holding hands. And so this is a great way to transfer heat between people. Right? So whenever you want to warm someone up, you just, you make contact with them, and then you transfer heat. Okay. Okay. So next mode of heat transfer is convection. So convection, there's some people who think that convection doesn't actually exist, because convection is just conduction. But convection is a term that we use specifically for heat transfer from a surface to a moving fluid. Okay. So what happens when you move a fluid past a surface, what that usually does is that enhances the heat transfer, okay? So let's give some examples. So on the left-hand side there, you see kind of a very common thing. So if you have a hot bowl of soup and you want to cool it because you don't want to destroy the roof of your mouth, the most common thing for you to do is to blow on it, okay? And what you're doing when you blow on it is that you are basically creating an airflow over the top and enhancing the heat loss through convection, okay? So something that we do very naturally, but there's a scientific backing behind it. Okay, and on the right there, is a comic, but it is a comic showcasing the effect of wind chill. Okay, so this is actually very very relevant today with all the winds that we've been having. But when you stand outside and it's windy, the ambient temperature may be the same, but if there's wind, it's always going to feel colder than not, because the wind, what that does is that enhances the heat transfer from your body to the environment. Okay, and in most cases, unless you live in Florida or unless it's 100 degrees outside, your body temperature most of the time is going to be hotter than the temperature outside. So any kind of wind will make you feel colder because it's enhancing the amount of heat that comes from your body. Okay, so the last mode of heat transfer is radiation. And so, honestly, we're not going to spend too much time on radiation in this class just because of the time constraints, but radiation is probably the most interesting form of heat transfer because it's the only one that doesn't require a medium. So both conduction and convection, the way that heat transfers in those cases, that it's molecule to molecule transport, okay? But when you're in a vacuum, there's no molecules, right? So if you're in space, it's literally just kind of empty space there. But it's still possible for heat to move in a vacuum. It just occurs through radiation. Okay. So the interesting thing about radiation is that all bodies will radiate temperature. So everyone in this room right now is radiating some temperature. But when you compare it to conduction and convection, usually the magnitude of the heat transfer from radiation is very, very small. And so most of the times we can neglect it. So that's kind of the reason why for this class, we don't talk about it too much. But if you're getting into aerospace applications or for applications that have very, very hot objects, then radiation becomes relevant in those cases. Okay. So probably the biggest example of radiation is, how the Earth receives energy from the sun. So obviously there's no matter, there's no medium in between the sun and the Earth. And it's the only way for, for heat to go from the sun to the Earth is via radiation. Okay. Another application of radiation that is very common is if you light a fire. And so fire is very, very hot. And so, a lot of the heat loss that comes from fire, a lot of heat transfer that comes from fire is through radiation. Okay. Okay. Any questions on these so far? Okay, good. Okay, so that is kind of the 3 modes of heat transfer, and and the course is kind of organized around that. Okay. And through the class, we're going to be covering, lots of smaller topics within these here. Okay. So I always like to show one of these kind of these bubble charts at the beginning of class. Don't feel like you need to understand everything here. In fact, if you understand everything here, then you don't need to take the class. But this is kind of just an overview of all the topics we're going to cover and just how they're all kind of related to each other. Okay. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about before we jump to the syllabus is to just talk about why heat transfer is important. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but managing thermal energy and managing heat transfer is important for almost any kind of engineering application. Okay, in fact, anytime we as humans consume energy, actually a lot of it is lost as heat. Okay, so for example, for a kind of traditional car that runs on an internal combustion engine, they actually only use up about 21% of the energy that's inside gasoline, because a lot of it is just lost, either to heat or to friction. You can consider friction as kind of heat loss as well. Okay, so that's not very efficient, right? And so if we're only using 20% of the energy that we have, there's you would think that there's a lot more rooms for improvement. Okay. And anytime that you're designing a system that's using energy, how you manage the heat transfer, how you manage the thermal engineering usually is going to determine how efficient your system is going to be. Okay, so heat transfer, very important for these kind of applications. Okay, so I have a video here. I used to have a video. There it is. Okay. So this is just something from my own interests. And so, if you know me, I'm not shy about, I like to play video games and tinker with computers. And so if you've ever designed a computer system before, that, one of the important things that you have to do is cool your system. Otherwise, it's literally going to melt itself and you're going to suffer with performance. So this is a really old video. I think I'll only play the first couple minutes.
Having a badass computer is a must for many gamers, but besides the extraordinarily powerful source and a top-notch processor and GPU, everybody knows that a well-optimized cooling system is mandatory. In order to keep their rigs at the right temperature, people have come up with some pretty wild ideas, and in what follows we'll be presenting 10 of the craziest ways some modders try to cool down their precious PCs.
We'll only watch the first couple.
A very resourceful user thought of a brilliant idea to cool down his computer, a turbine from 1990 Mitsubishi Eclipse. The turbocharger is able to move air through the PC so that it can provide the perfect cooling method, making it a weird yet effective way of keeping temperatures down low when overclocking your machine to engage in some really heated video gaming sessions. There's nothing human imagination and a little bit of ingenuity can't do. When it comes to innovation, the Russians surely take the grand prize, and this crazy modder stands as proof of that. He decided to keep his computer cool in some of the most ordinary, but yet creative ways by sticking it in the freezer. The nice part is that you'll have your fair share of polar air standing by in front of your rig, and this should be a blessing on a hot summer's day. In addition to that, the beer six-pack will be at arm's length, so we think that's a win-win situation. Why use only the original fan slots your computer comes equipped with when you can totally overkill and build an entire case out of them? When cooling down your PC, there's no overdoing it. You just have to be bold enough to step up and make an entire armor of plastic fans, glue them together and connect them to your main power source. And besides the practical side of this project, you'll also have the coolest PC in the neighborhood. Some people believe that air flows better if you totally dismantle your machine and hang its components on some wires, making a modern art display out of them. It might not look like the most elegant rig in the world, but it does the job, and what's not to like about it? On the plus side, you don't need to add any extra gadgets like we saw in other examples from our list. This project can be done by everybody with a computer and a taste for extravagant setups.
Okay, so you can watch the rest of it, but there's a lot of creative ways that people use to cool their PCs. And so, if you're into gaming, if you're into PCs, then this is something that you probably think about a lot. And so,
So is he cooling the PC with his pool, or is he heating the pool with his PC?
both. I mean, if you think about it, right? So I think maybe we can see that one. I think that one went at the end.
I want to see.
It's clickbait. It's gonna be the last one.
It's probably the last one. This person was ahead of his time. Put the clickbait at the beginning and then put the
An entire pool filled with water. In this video made and uploaded by Gavin Reme, we can see how he is using an ingenious method of keeping his computer cool by filtering the water in his pool and using it as a cooling liquid for the machine. So if you have a giant body of water in your backyard, why not give it another purpose besides swimming in?
Yeah, so it's heat transfers everywhere, and so and I remember when I was in school, people always told people in electrical engineering told me that making faster computers, making faster chips is not, it's not an electrical engineering issue. There's technology out there. It's just managing the heat that comes off and making sure the chips don't melt themselves. That's the main thing that's holding a lot of computers back. I don't know how that was about 10 years ago, so I don't know how relevant that is now, because it feels like we have newer, faster chips all the time, but it's still important. Okay, and also so one last thing, I think this is the last thing. Yeah. So just because my own expertise is in biology, heat transfer is also important in biology. So you have kind of a built-in heat exchanger within your body, which is your cardiovascular system. And so one way that your body manages the heat in your body is using the blood flow in your body to move kind of heat around to different places. Okay, and your body has its own mechanisms for cooling down and warming up when it needs to. Okay. All right, any final questions before we jump into the syllabus? Okay. All right, so let's talk about the syllabus. And so, the syllabus, the full PDF is available to you on the course website, but I just have the highlights here just for you. Okay. So first, let's talk office hours. So my office is just again right down the hall. It's in Engineering 220, and I also offer office hours. That's a mouthful. Via Zoom. Okay. And my office hour times for this semester are going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So Monday office hours are going to be in the morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Those ones are going to be a little bit special because I will be at home at that time. So the Monday office hours will be virtual only, but Tuesday and Thursday office hours will be both in person and virtual. So Tuesday, Thursday office hours will be just right after lecture, 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. just in my office down the hall. Okay. Office hours, those are the best times if you are confused about the course content, you have questions about the last lecture, you have questions on how to do the homework problems, you have questions on the upcoming exam. Office hours are kind of the best times for that, right? A lot of times in my office hours, I'm just kind of sitting there, just, answering emails or doing something. So, just stop by and ask anything that you want, okay? Or if you want to stop by, just say hi and introduce yourself, that's great. Okay, learning objectives. And so, we already talked about learning objectives at the beginning of class today, but I also have learning objectives at the course level. Okay, so these are the kind of the overall objectives that I want to accomplish by the end of the semester. Okay, and so you have your 4 learning objectives there. So number 1, define and differentiate between the 3 modes of heat transfer: conduction, convection, and radiation. So we actually already did that today, so that's great. Number 2, formulate a thermal engineering system into a heat transfer problem. Number 3, solve for the temperature distribution, energy transfer, and other related quantities in a heat transfer problem. And number 4, assess the effectiveness of thermal engineering design based on the temperature sensitivity of component parts and efficiency of heat transfer. Okay, So by the end of the semester, you should be able to do all of those things. Okay, let's talk deliverables. And so this class is pretty traditional. And so, you know, there are going to be 7 homework assignments, 2 midterm exams, and 1 final exam. Okay. The lowest homework assignment will be dropped. And so, this is done automatically on Canvas. And so, I know just throughout the course of a busy semester, especially for those of you who are seniors, you're going to have a very busy semester with senior design. I want to give you guys some flexibility in terms of, if you miss 1 homework assignment, I don't want that to be, really bad for your grade. So the lowest homework assignment will be dropped, but please still do them all, even if you can't get it in on time, because, the homeworks are kind of your chance to kind of, struggle with and kind of grapple with the material and really kind of learn it. Okay. Because the thing with engineering, and heat transfer is kind of no exception, is that, you can't just listen to someone talk about heat transfer, twice a week and expect to learn it. You have to kind of do stuff yourself. And the homework assignments are kind of your chance to do just that. Okay. Okay, so for the 2 midterm exams, they are not going to be cumulative. In fact, this class kind of has a nice split. So midterm 1 is going to be based on conduction. Midterm 2 is going to be based on convection. The final exam will be cumulative, so that's going to include all 3: conduction, convection, and radiation. Okay, and these are the dates that I have planned for all of the exams. So first midterm is going to be on Thursday, March 6th. Second midterm is going to be on Thursday, April 17th. And the final exam is going to be on Tuesday, May 13th. Okay, all of them going to be taking place in this room. So for the final exam, we can't change that. That's determined by the registrar. But for the midterm exams, there is some flexibility with that, and so it happens every semester. And I promise you, there's no conspiracy. I don't plan with the other professors and say, let's plan all our exams in 1 week. But I know it happens, and so if you guys have a lot going on during those weeks, I'm always open to either moving up or pushing it back. When it's more convenient for you. Okay. Okay, grades. And so we have a fairly standard grade breakdown here. So homework is worth 10%. Your 2 midterms together are going to be worth 50%, and your final exams will be worth 40%. Okay. Now for the midterm exams, I do something a little bit unique in this class. So you'll notice here that I have a higher midterm and a lower midterm. Okay. So what that means is that, between the 2 midterm exams, whichever one that you score higher in, I'm going to count that as a higher percentage of your grade. Okay. So let's say that, you take midterm 1, you get maybe a 94%, and then midterm 2, you get, maybe you don't do so well, and you get 72%. Then 94% is going to count for 30% of your grade. And whichever midterm you do worse in is only going to be worth 20%. Okay. So again, I kind of do this just to kind of give you guys a little flexibility. The thing with midterm exams is that, they always happen when everyone's really busy. And so I know not everyone can prepare the way that they want for every exam. So this kind of gives you a chance to, if you don't do so well in the first exam, a chance to really kind of make it up by the second exam, and, vice versa. So let's say you do really well in the first exam, I always say that that's kind of money in the bank. And so, you can't just slack off for the second exam, but maybe you can, take it a little bit more easy. Okay. And then based on your overall score, so once all the grades are in, I'm going to assign letter grades based on this kind of breakdown. Okay, so this is pretty standard. Okay. Last thing I want to mention is that I do apply grade scaling, and so what that means is that after all the grades are in, I'll look at the overall class average, and if it's below a certain threshold, so for heat transfer, my threshold is about maybe 78%. If it's below 78%, what I'll do is that I'll add points to everyone's grade until it's at that threshold. Okay. So I don't do this until the very end. So I don't, people always ask me if I'm going to curve the midterm exams. I almost never do that. So I only apply this at the end. Okay. All right. Any questions on the deliverables or the grading? Okay. Okay, textbook. So this is a pretty standard textbook. I think almost all the sections use this textbook. It's actually the same one that I used when I was in school. So it's called Introduction to Heat Transfer. I have the 6th edition here just because that's the one I got for free. But I think they may be on the 9th or 10th edition now. So just get whichever one that you can. The course textbook is required. Just because it's a required course, but it doesn't have to be this edition. So I always tell people, find a cheap version of the textbook. If you happen to find one while sailing the high seas on the internet, that's usually the best. That's usually the best thing to do. Okay. But for me, you know, I'm never going to assign you reading from the textbook. I'm never going to assign you problems from the textbook. I write all my own problems, and I post all my lecture notes. And in fact, I lecture straight from the notes. And so you don't need the textbook for, you know, not for anything required for the class, but it is a good reference. If anything, you know, just so that you can have more examples, more practice problems that kind of help you prep for the exam. Okay. And so find a cheap one, find a free one if you can, but you should get the textbook. This is a good textbook. There's a lot of good illustrations in there as well. All right, website. So we use Canvas in this class, as is required of us as an employee of Cal State Fullerton. But I try to put everything I can. I try to be as active as I can on the course website. So any kind of content that I produce for the class, lecture notes, lecture slides, lecture recordings, homework assignments, homework solutions, lecture notes, exam solution study guides. You know, I post basically everything I make for this class. I'm going to post it on Canvas. Okay. So make sure that you're active on the Canvas website. That's the main way you're going to turn in homework. Make sure you're familiar with the website and you know where everything is, just so that you can make best use of it throughout the semester. Okay. I'll also use Canvas to send announcements to the class. And so I think probably everyone got the announcement I sent last week, just welcoming everyone to the semester. So any announcement that I make on Canvas will be emailed to you, but you can also check them on Canvas yourself. Okay. And at the end of class today, we'll be taking a tour of the website just so that you can kind of see. Okay. All right, policies. So let's talk about late homeworks first. And so I do accept late homework. I do accept it up to a week after its original due date, okay? But for each day that the homework assignment is late, I do subtract 10% of the maximum allowable points, okay? So homeworks mostly will be turned in over Canvas, but you can also, you know, if Canvas is down or something like that, or if it's giving you weird problems, you can always just email it to me as well, okay? Or you can turn it in physically in class, although no one's done that for the past 2 years. So whatever works best for you, okay? But I do accept late homeworks, although I say that, I know someone's going to ask me that in about a week or so, but, you know, please do the homeworks, right? I do this because, you know, I try to be very intentional with my homework assignments. You know, I try not to waste your time with the homeworks. You probably won't believe me until maybe the end of the semester, but, you know, I still want you to do them. So you know, even if you can't make it by the deadline, you know, I still want you to do the homework and feel like you can still get some points for it. Okay. Regrades. And so, you know, I make mistakes just like everyone here. So, you know, I make mistakes when I'm grading. So please, you know, if I make a mistake grading your homeworks, or probably more relevantly on your exams, you know, please let me know. Even if it's simple as just, you know, adding up the points incorrectly, or if you feel like, you know, you deserve more points, or you don't really understand why I took off points, you know, please talk to me. You know, I want this to kind of be as open as possible. Okay. The only requirement that I have for the regrades is that it should be, you know, you should request a regrade within a week after I give back the exam or homework to you. Okay. Partially this is I have this policy just to prevent, you know, week 16 of the semester and people ask, oh, can you go back? You know, I need a few more points. Can you go back and regrade my homework 1? You know, that was, you know, 3 months ago. I'm not going to do that. So, but the other reason is, you know, when I grade stuff, you know, I try to leave you guys comments on, you know, how I think you can improve or where some gaps in your understanding may be. And really those comments are that feedback is only valuable to you when you kind of read it, when you're kind of still in the moment. If you read that feedback, you know, 2 months, 3 months later, you know, it's not really going to be that effective because we've already kind of moved on. So to kind of help encourage you guys to kind of read my comments and to look at your grades, you know, I put a week kind of deadline on any regrades. Okay. All right, and then lastly with emails. And so like I mentioned at the beginning of class today, you know, I do prefer that you email me about the class. Send me an email directly to my justran@fullerton.edu. You can send me a message through Canvas. You know, I'm not going to get mad at you, but, you know, I do prefer email. Okay. And just to kind of help me organize, just because, you know, I get a ton of emails. If you can put EGME 407 in the subject line, that would help me a lot. So that way I can kind of know that you're asking me about this class. Okay. And usually I'm pretty fast with emails. You know, lately with advising, you know, sometimes I just get dozens of emails, so I may be a little bit slower, but I do try to respond to emails within 48 hours, except on weekends. Okay. All right. Any questions on this? Okay, good. Okay, last thing I want to talk about before we kind of go to the website is academic dishonesty. So the college has very strict policies on academic dishonesty, and so please don't do it. And that includes the use of AI tools to complete the assignments. Okay. So of course, for this class, that's mostly just going to be for the homeworks. Unless you have ChatGPT in a chip in your brain, I don't think you could use it on the exams. But if I do see that you're using any kind of AI tools, I count that as academic dishonesty. Okay. And the reason for this is, I take a pretty hardline stance on this. And my stance is that, you guys are kind of taking this class, you guys are getting your degree here to learn these skills, right? And at the end of the day, if you're committing academic dishonesty, you're copying off someone, you're using ChatGPT, you're using kind of AI, you're really not kind of learning it because you're having someone else do it for you. Okay. And education is kind of an interesting thing because, I know it's a struggle sometimes because, you're doing these assignments and it takes a long time. I get it. I know it's a lot. But the whole point of taking a class like this is to kind of struggle through it. If this were just kind of a regular kind of corporate company and I give you an assignment and you do it by AI, that's probably fine because that's, I just need in that situation, I just need that task done so I can kind of pass it to my boss, or maybe we can sell a product or something like that. Okay. Education is different. And so, if you think about it, when I give you an assignment, I'm giving the assignment to an identical assignment to 40 other people in this class. And so I don't get any value from you, just turning in something and for me reading that because I'm reading the same thing 40 times, right? The whole point of doing an assignment is for you to do it and to learn these skills. Okay. And I do this because, I want you guys to leave here with these skills because, we're entering kind of a very, it's kind of a scary kind of age where, you're seeing a lot of companies are replacing people with AI. Even myself, I don't think it's that far in the future where, the chancellor is going to say, we don't need real Justin. We can just use AI Justin to teach his classes. And the chancellor, like, oh, then I can take real Justin's salary and pay myself. Okay. That's a very real reality that's coming. No matter what they say, I don't care what the chancellor says, they lie all the time. But, even just for my own work, I don't use AI for anything that I do because, I feel like I need to show that, what I do is always going to be more valuable to students than what an AI can do. Okay. And, a lot of your companies that you're going to be working for are probably going to be asking the same thing. So I want you guys to leave this class, leave this university, with these skills so that, you can always say that I'm smarter than an AI. I can do this better than an AI. Okay. So that's kind of why I take this stance. Okay. And the promise I make to you guys that an AI will never be able to do is that if you're ever struggling in the class, if you feel like you're falling behind, you feel like you can't do the assignments, please come talk to me, right? I've never felt that my job here is to judge you guys or to kind of look down on you guys. That's not my role here. My role is to, help you guys succeed, to help you guys achieve your goals as much as possible. Okay. So if you come to me, even if it's the last week, say, I've not been doing anything, but I still need to pass this class. I say, all right, let's talk. Let's see what we can do to get you back on track. Right. And I promise you, I will do everything I can to help you. But, if you cheat, if you use AI, there's not much I can do at that point, just because, we have kind of very strict policies on it. Okay. So last thing before we look at the website is the first homework assignment. So this doesn't count as one of the 7. There's 7 more homework assignments on top of this. So that's why I call it homework 0. But the first thing I want you guys to do is to send me an email to introduce yourself, and you get full credit just for completing it. Okay. And I mean that. And so, I have all these questions here, and you can answer these questions if you want. I have those questions there just to give you kind of a, if you don't really know what to talk about. But if you just send me an email, just say, hey, this is my email, give me credit, then I will give you credit for it, just because that's how the assignment is written. Okay. But it is a lot nicer. It is a lot more pleasant, if you do kind of write a good introduction, because we're going to be together for the entire semester, for a lot of you guys up until commencement. And so I want to kind of get to know you guys. Okay. So if you don't know what to say about yourself, I have some questions here. So number 1, what kind of career do you want to have? Number 2, what kind of skills or what do you want to learn most from this course? Number 3, do you have any worries or concerns? That's an important one. Let me know, because if I can do something to kind of alleviate those concerns, I want to do that. Okay. And number 4, probably the most fun one is, what are your interests and hobbies? Okay. So the due date for this is this Sunday, January 26th. So if you send me an email by that point, then you'll get full credit. And don't forget to add EGME 407 to the subject line. Okay. All right, any questions on this before we go to the course website? Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and switch here. And I probably should have had it open before. Oops, mistyped my password. I literally just logged in just 30 minutes ago. Okay, let me switch to student view just so that we can kind of see. Okay, so if you go to Canvas and you open up the page for EGME 407, this is what you're going to see. Okay. So when you first come here, this is the home page of the course. And so we have the title of the course. We have a little bit about myself, the times, the location. You guys all know this because you're all here. Okay. We have the course description, the learning objectives, and then we have these links. Okay. So these links are going to be very important throughout the semester. So first thing we have here is the syllabus. So if you click on this, you can download it, you can view it. We just went through it, and so there's nothing on here that's new compared to what we just talked about. But if you wanted to refer to it, check the dates of the exams, you can do that here. Okay. We have the Zoom links here. So we have the lecture Zoom link. We have the Zoom links for all the office hours. Okay. So if you've taken me before, you know that I stream all of my lectures on Zoom, and I do record all the lectures and post them on YouTube after. So whether you attend in person or Zoom, for the most part, it doesn't matter to me. The only times that you are required to be here in person are going to be on the exam dates. And so on the exams, don't log into the Zoom, make sure you're here in person. But besides that, whether you come here in person or on Zoom, it doesn't matter to me. Okay. There's another link here for a fluids property calculator. We're not going to use this until we get to convection. But just so it's there, you're going to use it. You're going to use it a lot when we get to convection. Okay. And the last thing I want to show you guys on the home page is the course outline here. Okay. So you can see here, I have a week-by-week breakdown of all the different topics we're going to cover in this class. Okay. So right now we're on week 1. And what you're going to notice is that each week, as we go along, each week will become clickable here. Right. So we're only on week 1. So this is the only one that's clickable. So we click on week 1. Okay. You'll come up to the description for that week. Okay, so for every week, I have kind of the title of the topics that we're going to cover. I write a little bit of a blurb in terms of what you can expect to learn for that week. I have the learning objectives for that week as well. Okay, probably most likely most of you are going to be visiting these weekly pages to get the lecture recordings. So after every lecture, I post the lecture onto YouTube, and then I post the links here. Okay, so then you can click on this link here to view the lecture recordings. These weekly pages are also a good way to kind of summarize what assignments are out there, and any kind of lecture notes or any kind of files that you need for that week are going to be here as well. Okay, so I always tell people, before at the beginning of every week on Monday or Tuesday, check out the weekly page. Just make sure you have the lecture notes. Make sure that you know the assignments due that week, and it's a good thing to do. Okay, so that's the home page. As the weeks go along, usually on Fridays, I will post the weekly page for the next week. So on Friday of this week, the week 2 page will be up, and you can check that out. Okay. All right, next tab here is we have announcements. And so there's only one announcement so far, which is just the welcome. So if for some reason you want to look back at one of the previous announcements, you can do that here. Next tab here is assignments, and by the way, I try to keep this as clean as possible. There's probably a million different widgets and things that you can do here, but I try to keep it as simple and clean as I can. Okay, so all the assignments will be posted here, and so right now there's just homework 0. I'm working on the first homework assignment right now, the first real one, but this is the only one you have to worry about. Okay, this is also where you're going to be turning in the assignments as well. Next tab here, we have your grade. And so, probably if you use Canvas before, you're probably familiar with this. And so, you can check your current grade in the class. Okay. Next tab here is we have people. And so this is the list of everyone that's in the class. Okay. just make sure your name is here, make sure you're in the class, that's always a good thing. Okay. Next tab here, this is probably going to be the other one that you visit most often, which is the Files tab, okay? So any kind of homework assignment or lecture note that I post for the class will be posted here, okay? And so you can see here, there's different folders, and so I have a folder for assignments. So this is where I'm going to post the homework assignments. I have another folder for lecture notes, and so I actually have all the lecture notes already posted on there, okay? So you can view these, okay? Solutions, so homework solutions, exam solutions, I'll post here as well. And I also have the syllabus here. And so also for every exam, I'm going to post a study guide, so that'll be here available here as well. Okay. Okay, and the last tab is SOQs. I don't think this will be active until the end of this semester. Okay. All right, any questions on the course website? Okay, all right, so that's all I had planned for today. And so we'll call it a little bit early today. So if you have questions about your enrollment for the class or anything, I'll stick around until 2:15. But if not, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Welcome to the spring semester, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks, guys. Hey, Bill, how's it going?
Pretty good. I have a meeting with you tomorrow.
Okay.
So just a quick question. Do you have
Okay, well, I'll probably have you guys take it early.
Yeah.
Just before you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so you're not gonna- oh.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
only reason, because which is Saturday.
Oh, okay, so you gotta head out on Tuesday.
Yeah, that.
On Saturday, and then the walk is on Monday, so we have the whole Sunday, like, figure it out, it's like 32 hours.
Whatever finals we have that.
Oh, man. Dang, I'm pretty early.
Yeah. It's a fair amount, but every single year, the football teams are gonna skip the finals on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, Baha's gonna be.
I just missed like last.
You guys performance.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll.
But I'm gonna meet you at 9 tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
I appreciate
Guys,
that.
scheduling, so what's the?
I can't have that time, so.
Okay.
For that one, so this is the one that works for me.
Oh,
Right now, it's, I think there's only 2 people.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
if you're able to take in like 2 or 3,
yeah,
that would be awesome, but I know you're saying you're a little strict about it.
they are usually, but this is also a big room. So
Yeah,
If there's any room
I
that.
was gonna say, it's funny to even see you in here.
Yeah,
I'm always
I've
used to
been-
seeing you in CS.
I haven't been here in years.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, but, okay, are you in 360 this semester?
Yes.
Okay, oh,
Yeah.
that does complicate.
That's why, because it wouldn't let me drop
Yeah,
my other one and take
Yeah,
this
yeah.
because of the code.
yeah, I was just talking to Andy before. the
So,
class.
yeah, I just went and talked to them downstairs and they were like, yeah, we can start the process, but you have to get transproof first.
Okay, okay,
So,
okay, yeah, that's the hard thing, because I don't want, as I told Andy too, I wouldn't drop your other section, because it drops your 360 as well. I haven't seen our.
it won't even let me drop it.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
Yeah, because you would have to drop the 360 first, and then drop your 407, and then add this one. But then if you're on the wait list, then you can't even add 360 back. on top of it. So-
Yeah, I mean, I'm enrolled in my Friday, it's like a Friday morning one, so it
Okay.
probably has some availability.
Okay,
I could check that, because if you think it'll work that way, or if I drop through 6B,
yeah,
then drop through 407.
Yeah.
Enroll in your 407.
Yeah.
And then.
that's,
roll in through.
that's what you have to do. It's, I don't.
I can try that real quick.
It's
see if it
been
works.
years, but I don't know why the school doesn't fix that, because it's always an issue with the co-requisite. If you want to switch sections, you can't.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the order that you have to do.
Let me try that. and
Okay,
we'll help them out.
Yeah. what's up? Are you on the wait list? So, yeah, so I was talking to them, usually for, even if there's empty seats, usually the department, what they might do is they like to spread the enrollment across the different sections. So if there's another section that works for you, then the department will probably tell you to that one. Now, if this is the only section that works for you because of work schedule.
I had
Um,
dropped, I was in a class this morning. dropped.
Gotcha, okay, okay, send me an email, I'll have to see how many people want to add the course, because I think right now I'm already at 42, 43 or something like that. And I know the other sections, maybe not be that much, but, yeah, send me an email and then we'll see. what we do.
Yeah, 'cause when I joined, it was like, there was one person on the wait list.
Okay. Oh, you're already on the wait list, right? Okay, and what's your name?
Tin Tran.
Okay, Tim, okay, sound good, yeah, I'll send me an email, just remind me, and then I'll talk to the department.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.